What's up, my wizards? It's Dev from SBMTG. We like magic, and I'm pretty sure my camera has crapped out. I hope that's not what happened. I think what I really need to do is buy a whole new battery pack. I hope that's the problem, but that's neither here nor there. I do have a bunch of spoilers that I want to talk to you about today, and a lot of them are really, really good. We got to see some absolutely absurd reprints that I don't think any of us thought we'd see, and some brand new original stuff for Core Set that's definitely going to make its mark, at least in Standard. So let's go ahead and look at these, starting with some draft chaff, and we'll work our way up. I might call it chaff, but Psychic Symbiont, Aerial Engineer, and Brawl Bash Ogre all look like decent cards in the limited environment. Now, Brawl Bash Ogre might actually be a trap. I'm concerned about that. It's a 4-mana possible 5/5 with Menace. All that's good. But you don't usually want to go down on board presence like that, even in a slow format like Sealed. Board presence is everything. So unless you're doing something that specifically benefits you, they get you another effect off of sacrificing creatures. I'm not sure how good this card usually is, but sometimes Hill Giants are decent enough in the sealed environment, so a 4-mana 3/3 Menace is probably at least okay, and in the rare chance that you'll get this through for 5 damage if you sacrifice a creature, it might be worth it, but I'd be a little bit wary. As far as Engineer and Symbiont, both of these look fantastic, though. If you can just get one artifact, Aerial Engineer is a 4-mana 4/4 flyer, which is really, really good in limited just about no matter what. And then Symbiont especially looks crazy. I will say at 6 mana, a 3/3 flyer isn't the best deal. At 6 mana, 3/3 flyers, flying creatures are always good in sealed and in limited. But at 6 mana, a lot of flying creatures are going to be bigger than Symbiont. That said, the Enter the Battlefield trigger is just unbelievable. It's absurd, because it's effectively a 3-for-1. They lose a card, you go up a card, and you get a permanent on the battlefield. So that effect sounds like it costs 6 mana to me. So the casting cost makes a lot of sense. But let's take a bit of a step up here and look at some cards that might have a chance at life outside of the limited environment. And those are Satyr, Enchanter, Volley Veteran, and Draconic Disciple. Now with Draconic Disciple, I'm not really holding my breath. This costs 1 more mana than I would reasonably want a Mana Dork to cost, but especially, we'll go back to limited for a second. I like it because in those environments, it does something in the relatively early game, and it helps you get to your big cards, and it fixes your mana. Like, oh, that's decent. But once the late game does hit, it can create a potentially game-ending threat for you. So that's awesome. And I can see that being decent in Standard if red-green ramp is a thing, but there's probably a lot better ways to ramp than this. But there's not too often that you see a ramper and a win condition all in one card. So again, it has a fighting chance, even if I don't expect it to. I feel the same way about Enchanter in a lot of ways. I've always really liked, quote, Enchantress type creatures, and this is a classic one right here. Cast an enchantment, draw a card. That's really good value, even if you only get 1 card or 2 off of this. It's usually done its job. You can just slam auras onto this thing and draw cards for value, or you could play cards like Seal Away and History of Benalia, and that seems like it would be pretty decent, honestly. So I'm interested in trying to build a Standard deck with this, but I really don't expect it to see higher levels of Standard play. It just seems like a fun deck to be able to put together to play Enchantress again. But I think where that line of reasoning breaks on the last 2 cards is with Volley Veteran. Unlike the last 2 cards, I think this has a real shot at seeing Standard play in more than just a budget deck. If you curve out and go, Goblin on turn 1 all the way up until Volley Veteran on turn 4, then it's effectively a Flame Tongue Kavu with really good creature types. 4/2 and all, and it'll deal 4 damage in that situation when it enters the battlefield. And that is really, really good. And there are ways you can deal 5 damage with this when you curve into it. If you go, 1-drop Goblin on turn 1, turn 2, 2 1-drop Goblins. So you can really make this deal a bunch of damage. It looks really good if you've been able to play a Siege Gang Commander before it. That looks fine. And even if you haven't played like too many other Goblins that game, I bet the curve of just, Goblin Chain Whirler into this is maybe good enough. Take out all their small guys, and then turn 4, play your veteran, and then kill a 2 toughness guy. Like, that just seems like all the value in the world. You're just, you've killed a bunch of their dudes at that point, and you've gone up 2 creatures. So I think Volley Veteran might have real, actual life outside of limited and budget decks. This card looks like it easily could go all the way. I guess I'll set aside some time here and talk about Smelt and Mirror Image for just a second. In case you didn't know, Smelt is a reprint. It is twice as good as Shatter, but nowhere near as good as a Braid, and I think it's going to keep it from seeing play at all the way up until rotation. But a Braid does rotate out, and so this could easily be the weapon of choice against artifacts post-rotation. It's obviously much more of a sideboard piece than a Braid is. It's nowhere near as versatile, but 1 mana to destroy an artifact could be a valuable effect. But I really like Mirror Image. I don't know how much competitive play a card like this is going to see. But there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with a clone that costs 1 less mana and can only copy your guys. If you build your deck to abuse this or to take advantage of it, then it's awesome to have a 3-mana clone. Obviously a splashable one too. Only costs 1 colored mana, so it's very easy to play. Even like a 3-colored deck. I like a lot about that. I like the idea of using this in tribal decks as well. As, effectively another Lord. And that could be good. You got Merfolk Mistbinder turn 2, this on turn 3. That could be an interesting play line. Although I don't think that's going to end up being what we do with this card, if we do anything with it. But I definitely think it's got a lot of potential. That's a relatively cheap cost for a clone. But let's go back in time here for a second and look at some cards that were spoiled at the end of the weekend, including the Vectis Asmati the Dire. Yeah, it looks like we're going to get all of the Elder Dragons from Legends back in core set, which is just awesome, you guys. That is really, really cool. We'll see another one in this video, as a matter of fact, but there's still more that we need to see before it's all said and done. And I really like what they're doing so far with these. For instance, the Vectis is 6 mana, 3 and Jund colors for a 6/6 legendary Elder Dragon with flying. And whenever it attacks, for each player, choose target permanent that player controls. Those players sacrifice those permanents. Each player who sacrificed a permanent this way reveals the top card of their library, then puts it onto the battlefield if it's a permanent card. Now, just to clear a couple of things up, yeah, you have to sacrifice stuff, and yeah, you get to choose what they sacrifice. I've seen people reading this card different ways in the couple of days since it was spoiled, so I just wanted to clear that up. I think that this looks ridiculous, in Commander at the very least. I don't think this is really going anywhere in Standard, even though you do have an attacks trigger that allows you to force them to sacrifice things. That's good. And you could always just sacrifice a land or another useless-ish permanent and have the ability to spin up a crazy free permanent on the roulette wheel. So that's possible, but keep in mind, even if you're blowing up your opponent's best permanent, they still have a chance at spinning that same roulette wheel and just getting the best card in their entire deck. Now, it's elements of randomness like that usually keep cards like this from seeing competitive play. Not to mention that it costs 6 freaking mana, and it doesn't do anything the turn you play it. You have to wait a whole turn to actually get that attacks trigger. So there's obviously stuff that I think is going to keep it out of Standard, but Commander players, this looks unbelievable. Especially if you like sitting at a Commander table with 7 other players. This looks crazy. So have all the fun you can with this. We also got to see Lathless Dragon Queen on Sunday. I really like this card. It's 6 mana, 4 and 2 red for a 6/6 legendary dragon with flying. And whenever another non-token dragon enters the battlefield under your control, create a 5/5 red dragon creature token with flying. And you can pay 1 and a red to have dragons you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. Now, again, I'll reiterate, I really like this card, but just like Vivictus, I don't see this seeing really any Standard play, despite the fact that it is the queen of the Shivens. So there's that. But again, this is more of a Commander-looking card to me, but a really good one. If you want a Dragon Commander, you had a couple of choices beforehand, but this looks like a really, really good one. Giving all your dragons, effectively fire breathing is awesome, and doubling up on dragons that you play is great too. So I'm sure Commander players will treasure this for quite some time. Now let's check out this reprint though. Here's Magistrates Scepter. It's 3 mana for an artifact, and you can pay 4 and tap it to put a charge counter on it. You tap it and remove 3 charge counters from it to take an extra turn. A reprint from Mercadian Masks. I'm digging that. I'm on your side for that one, Wizards. But Scepter is cool. This probably won't do much of anything if I had to predict it, but note this reprint does have any impact. It might be in the Modern format, because reprinting it makes it now legal in Modern. So I don't want to overlook that possibility. Croc Clan Ironworks is a deck I keep hearing come up, as well as Proliferate. Those decks based around that mechanic, but I'm just not seeing it, honestly. Even in Ironworks, it just looks so gimmicky. And even though Ironworks would definitely like access to extra turns, I just think you'd be putting a lot of time and effort into getting those extra turns, and it might not be worth it in the end. So I just don't think, if I had to guess, that this would have impact in Modern. But we'll have to wait and see. There may be a reason that Wizards decided to reprint specifically this card. I might be way off base, and it's just crazy in a deck like Ironworks, or even in like Modern Tron, who knows. But I really doubt it. It just ultimately seems very gimmicky and like an awful lot of work to be able to actually pull it off. Speaking of reprints, whoop, here's Crucible of Worlds and Scapeshift. Didn't see that coming, did you? Did you? Because I didn't. Crucible of Worlds is currently at about $60 or $65 on TCG Player, and Scapeshift is not much lower. I think it's like $55 on TCG Player for a copy of Scapeshift in lightly played condition. So this is crazy that they're reprinting these cards into Standard, no less, by the way. These are both good, and they actually work fairly well together, if you didn't notice. So I can't even begin to start with, how we play these cards in Standard, but even outside of the Standard format, which is usually all I talk about, these reprints are important for a number of reasons. Commander players really like them, and then Modern players obviously too. Will love that there are, much more attainable copies of these cards now, and hopefully this will control the price. Because honestly, these prices are a little bit out of control. I was unaware before I looked the prices up that they were so high. So this is, I think, nothing but good. I think some people are going to be mad. Like, if you just bought your Scapeshifts, you're probably going to be mad. But I'd say think of the greater good in that situation. I'd say it's usually almost always better when price controls come into play. So I love the fact that we're seeing these again, and I couldn't be happier. Let me just put it that way. Take a look at some brand new stuff here, starting with the Johnny's Last Stand, which has really, really good art. Let me just say that. But it's 4 mana, 2 and 2 white, for an enchantment. Whenever a creature or planeswalker you control dies, you may sacrifice the Johnny's Last Stand. If you do, create a 4/4 white avatar creature token with flying. And when a spell or an ability an opponent controls causes you to discard this card, if you control a planes, create a 4/4 white avatar creature token with flying. Now, I've seen a lot of comments like, don't kill a Johnny, but I'm pretty sure that these are all past events that are occurring in core sets, so I believe this has already happened, and Catman is still alive, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. I really like the flavor of the card. Obviously, if say, they play the new Nicol Bolas on turn 4, they make you discard a card. You just discard this, and you get a 4/4 flying guy, as long as you control the planes, at least. So that's cool. I mean, that can go toe-to-toe with Bolas, which is obviously the flavor of what's happening on this card. I believe that in the story, if you're interested, he creates some sort of copy, or I guess avatar, of Bolas to fight Bolas. So that's what's going on this card, and I like that. I even like, obviously, the first mode, where if they kill Johnny or any other planeswalker, you just get a free 4/4 with flying. Or if they kill a creature, which is going to happen a lot over the course of a game, you just get a 4/4 with flying. That's not terrible, but I don't think the card is terribly playable either. I think there's probably just going to be better ways to spend the slot than a card like this. But that being said, I mean, this could keep out a couple of different strategies and help keep up the aggression. I guess you could always say this is an anti-board wipe card. Get this down on turn 4, and then if they sweep you with Fumigate or Hour of Devastation, then you're left with a 4/4 flyer, which seems like a pretty good position to be in after a sweeper. So I see reasons you'd want to play this card, but it really looks more of a sideboard 2 of than ever seeing play in the main deck. That said, it's probably at least somewhat sort of playable. So there's that. I don't think it's going to shock the world, but it might show up in the 15 occasionally. Now let's take a look at Elvish Clancaller right here. This is 2 green mana for a 1/1 elf druid, and other elves you control get +1/+1. There it is, boys. You pay 6 mana, 4 and 2 green, tap, search your library for a card named Elvish Clancaller, put it onto the battlefield, and then shuffle your library. I like it. A lot of people have just been saying boo on this card because Goblin Chain Whirler exists, and I don't think that's a good enough reason to hate this card, especially if you can get 2 of them out before they get Chain Whirler down. That seems fairly strong. But if they're not playing Chain Whirler, let me just put it that way, then once you can start using one to search for another, which subsequently will search for another, then it seems like this will snowball pretty intensely, because you can easily get all 4 of them out over the course of a game if the first one sticks. So I really like that about it. I like that it's a 2-mana Lord for elves. People have been saying modern elves, ? All day. And people have been saying, no, probably not. But honestly, I don't know if we can make that determination yet. Either way, I've been talking about wanting a, truly playable 2-mana elf for weeks now. And I'm glad that we've definitely gotten it, I think that the presence of one card in the format isn't going to put me off playing a 4 of this in an elves deck, obviously. But now let's check out Resplendent Angel, and I'm happy about this. This is 3 mana, 1 and 2 white for a 3/3 angel with flying. At the beginning of each end step, if you gain 5 or more life this turn, create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying and vigilance. And, there's more, you can pay 3 and 2 white, that's 6 mana. Until end of turn, Resplendent Angel gets +2/+2 and gains lifelink. Now, obviously, one of the reasons I like this card is because I had just said the other day in the Cards I Want the Most video that I really want a lower cost Angel to play with Lyra, because obviously Lyra gives all your Angels, +1/+1 and lifelink. So I wanted cheaper Angels on the curve that we could play in that deck. And we got it, curving this into Shalai into Lyra sounds like a bad time for any opponent, so I really like that about it. But it's self-sufficient too. Note that it basically has synergy with itself. Because once you get to 6 mana, you can give it +2/+2 in lifelink if it gets through, or even if it just gets blocked or whatever. You'll gain 5 life, and then you'll get a 4/4 angel with flying and vigilance off of that at the end step. Also note, it's the beginning of each end step. So if you can manage to gain 5 life on your opponent's turn, you'll get a 4/4. An angel. That seems really good too. It's a fine body in and of itself. I think there's a reason this card is mythic. To be honest, I know the mythic rarity has been sort of befuddling people all day. But I totally get it. This card actually looks stacked to me. We'll still have cards like a Braid and Lightning Strike in the format for a while. Lightning Strike will survive rotation. So I don't think the card is just absolutely unbeatable or anything, but I do think that this is a crazy card in a lot of ways that I might rather play than History of Benalia in the right deck. I mean, if you can just grind 1 angel in a game off of this card, it's really, really good. But I would also argue that even if you don't get an angel off of it, it probably still did something. Like the floor on this card is pretty high, and the ceiling is sky high. And that's not even a pun. Like the ceiling on this card is Sears Tower high. You can do a lot with this if you have the tools to abuse it. And obviously, Lyra can help you abuse this card. Even if you don't ever give this card that 6 mana +2/+2 in lifelink, Lyra just by herself is a 5/5 lifelinker, obviously. So she'll help you get more tokens with your Resplendent Angel too. They're going to be a great team in Standard. So I'm just super happy this card exists, if you can't tell. I considered making it the last card of the day. That's how happy I am about it. So let me know how you feel about it down there in the comments section. I know some people actually aren't anywhere near as high on this card as I am, but I've got a feeling that this card is actually insane. But there were other cards today besides Resplendent Angel that got spoiled that I think are just abjectly, stupidly powerful in a more clear-cut way. And I think that Dark Dweller Oracle is a good example. This is 2 mana, 1 and a red for a 2/2 Goblin Shaman. And you can pay 1 and sack a creature to exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. Well, this reminds me a lot of Abbot of Carol Keep, which was fantastic. Even though Abbot did have an Enter the Battlefield trigger, and those tend to be better, this is still a very cheap ability to use, and you can use it more than once, which you can't really say about Abbot unless you could blink Abbot or whatever. So I think that DDO actually is almost certainly going to see play. And I really like the reference here. Dark Dwellers wasn't even in Standard that long ago, but it still feels really cool and nostalgic to have this card be called Dark Dweller Oracle and have the Dark Dwellers in the background. I think it's a really cool touch. But the card itself is just absurd. It's ludicrous. 2 mana for a 2/2. I mean, that's a bear. That's bear stats. That's fine. It's obviously got a relevant creature type and is a great 2-drop for goblins. I also think we might possibly be seeing a sort of Goblin Aristocrats deck two words you never think would go together, just because of the connotations of both words are so opposite. But it'd be cool to see a Goblin Aristocrats deck. We've got Skirk Prospector, now we've got this, and we've got stuff like Siege Gang Commander that gives us plenty of creatures to sacrifice. So if we can find some sort of, upside for sacrificing creatures, or just a way to easily reanimate them for value or something like that, then I think we might have a real deck on our hands. But even if Goblins is just a mono-red, curve out, aggro, or mid-range deck, this card will serve it very well for getting extra draws when it needs it. But the last card of the day is the other Elder Dragon that we got to see today, and that's Palladia Mors, the Ruiner. This is Nicol Bolas' sister, which is awesome. And it's 3 and Naya colors, 6 mana, for a 6/6 legendary Elder Dragon with flying, vigilance, and trample. And, this is the cool part, it has hexproof if it hasn't dealt damage yet. First of all, I just want to point out that she is the most vicious of her kin, and she's Nicol Bolas' sister, so what does that tell you? But I have to reiterate that I am really glad that we're seeing the Elder Dragons back. I think a lot of people have wanted this for a really long time, so I can't wait to see, Arcades Sabbath or Chromium, if we get to see that. And this card, I really like. I've seen a lot of people, I won't say a lot of people, but I have seen people putting this down, and I don't get it, because this card looks just nuts to me. Note that if it blocks or something, then it has dealt damage. So keep that in mind, but mostly the dream, obviously, is that you play it, you wait a turn, you attack with it, and it has hexproof for at least that attack step. And that seems really good, especially if you can build on top of it and just make, a 2020 Palladia Mors. That seems like a pretty good idea for a commander deck. But in Standard, I gotta tell you, even at 6 mana, a huge, evasive creature with 3 keyword abilities and a form of hexproof is probably good enough. Also note, by the way, that if you can somehow blink a Palladia Mors, then you'll reset its hexproof, because obviously it's considered a completely different card at that point, or a different copy of Palladia Mors. So if you can blink it, you'll reset the hexproof. Keep that in mind. And obviously we have multiple ways of reanimating this in Standard right now, whether it's, Liliana or Scarab God or Godfarer's Gift, and obviously those will bring it back as a 4/4, which you don't necessarily want, but I should, again, just saying, there's a lot of ways to get this back into play once it loses its hexproof and then subsequently dies. There are plenty of ways to get it back and reset that hexproof. Now, this is usually where I would say that I'm tapped out and I'm done for the day and that's all for now. But that's not quite true this time around, because I have an exclusive preview coming out in just an hour or so that I wanted to make its own video. I wanted to get this one out as quickly as possible, but don't worry, my exclusive preview is coming out very, very soon after this video comes out, and it is crazy. I really, really like my exclusive preview, and I think that it might have, some sort of effect in multiple formats, including Legacy, you guys. So just stay tuned, keep with the channel, make sure you check your notifications and all that, because very, very soon after this video comes out, I'll be releasing my preview card, and I really want you guys to see that. Yeah. But now I really am tapped out. That's all I got to say. I really wish that I was on camera for this, but again, I'm kind of freaked out that I might have to buy another $600 camera. So let's hope that that is not the case. And we can get that fixed so I can see you guys again soon. But in any case, that's all I've got for now. Just do me a favor. Like the video if you liked it. Do all the YouTube stuff. Follow me on Twitter at SBMTGDev. And that's about it. You can, if you want, you can throw $1 in the Patreon. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to help the channel out. I might need that. Because again, I'm kind of worried about what's going on with my camera. Or you could also, another way of helping me out is to check out my sponsor, TCG Player. They're good to your boy. They're nice people. And they're also where you can get the cheapest core set product for pre-order right now on the entirety of the interwebs. Core set boxers are still pre-ordering for a relatively low price. And now that we know that this set actually looks really good, so far at least, the prices are just going to keep going up on those sealed products. But you can already pre-order a lot of the cards that I've talked about in the last couple of days on TCG Player. So if you're interested in sort of a pre-order price guide at the very least, then click that first link in the description. And I'm pretty sure that's it, you guys. I know that you probably didn't like staring at a graphic all video. I'm sorry about that. Try to get that fixed as soon as I possibly can. But until next time, I'll catch you cats later. I'm Dev from The Place, and I will see you in like an hour, probably. Thanks for watching, my wizards. Spread love and be kind.